Hello there, buddies. Today we're going to be talking about Update 18 and what kind of impact we expect it to have on Hell Let Loose. Now, moving on to the armor rework. So this is going to be something that's going to be heavily, it's going to impact competitive matches a lot. Pub matches too. It's going to impact everything. But from a streamer standpoint, here's what I'm going to be looking out for. Now that your tanks are a little bit faster, I think the Tetrarch is coming in, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, but I believe in my notes I have it coming in as 39 kilometers per hour, so the fastest tank on the board. And then we have second being the Lukes, which has got a little boost as well. So with these sort of speed increases, what I'm looking forward to see is tanks being more aggressive when they know they have the advantage. We've seen it time and time again where a heavy tank will get a shot on another heavy tank. The distance will be too great for them to push, so they'll just wait and they'll look to maybe find a little shot on them, but then by that time happens, the other tank is repaired and is good to go. Now that the tanks are a little bit quicker, especially like the heavy tanks, we may see some maneuvers where after they get a shot in, the other tank misses, let's say, the other tank backs up, then we may see the other tank start to push and try to take advantage of the situation. And so let's go ahead and jump into a clip real quick to show you an example. Now, in a situation like this on SME, where to a checkpoint specifically, we oftentimes see tanks just on the side of the duels with a Tiger on the left over here, 76s line up on the hedgerows to the right. So with the increases in speed and the limitation of two heavies, we may see heavies take advantage if they're able to get the first shot in and the other tank misses, let's say. So I won't be surprised if we start to see the tanks be more aggressive in this case if they feel like they have that advantage. So if they're able to get that first shot in, charging on forward, because they know for a fact they only have to worry about one more heavy. Let's keep that in mind. Before, tankers are like, do they have two heavies up, three heavies up, four heavies up maybe? In this case, they know there's a max of two. Everybody has a max of two. And the tankers will be a little bit more clear on what they're dealing with. So if they knock out one heavy, well, what does that mean? The enemy is only going to have one heavy. It's guaranteed. So it makes the math very simple. So in situations like these, especially with the speed increases to the Luxes, wouldn't be surprised if we see that being used as a decoy, pushing across, distracting the heavy, and the tanker and the Tiger, for in this case, tries to be aggressive, move across checkpoint to get to take advantage of the situation for the damaged jumbo. Okay, so that's just one example of what I see for the speed increases. Let's go take a look at another situation. Now, on a map here like Utah with Wind 7 as the midpoint, I could totally see light tanks being used from the Axis side to push on forward here and try to wipe some OPs in the hard cap with the additional speed boost, just to make anything happen. Because remember, that there's going to be essentially an additional tank crew available to go into any other tank besides a heavy. Most teams will have three main tank crews and a flex tank crew. Since there's only two main tank crews needed for heavies, then that's going to open up the options for the other tanks. So don't be surprised if we start to see some more creativity when it comes to medium and light tanks, especially given the speed increase. And so that's where I'm talking about diving your tanks forward into a hard cap with the speed, just running around, wiping OPs, reporting back how many OPs you wiped, because we've seen it on streams before where tankers will just run through the back line, clutter up command comms on the other side, and make some magic happen. Yeah, the artillery's just going to be shutting down that lane. Another issue that oftentimes competitive tankers deal with is the reloading of ammo. Well, it seems like that's maybe solved with the new ammo depots. When I first looked at the changes, I saw that the heavy tank jumbo specifically going from 60 to 30 HE rounds. I was thinking, oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's going to reduce their ability to have some infantry support on the front line and obviously increase the incentive to use a jumbo 75 maybe in some cases when they're not spawning jumbo 76s for the two main tank crews. But in this case, we have the ammo depot that can be built on the front line for the tanks, and so that's going to sort of offset, I think, the decrease right here. Now, as long as the enemy artillery isn't going to be allocating around the enemy tanks. And speaking of that, it's going to increase the importance of our armor and artillery working together, because now artillery doesn't just knock out repair stations, but potentially knock out ammo depots. And then with the different repair mechanic as well, the tankers will be more exposed, which we'll talk about here in a second. when it comes to repairing their own tank. But that's sort of my initial thoughts on the armor rework. I'm thinking from a streaming standpoint, teams are going to be wanting to use the speed to their advantage a little bit more. We're going to see some more tankers working together on the wide flanks, potentially now that we only have 2 heavies maximum. 2 heavies on the front line, maybe 2 medium crews working the flanks, 2 mediums working together, 2 lights working together. And especially when it comes down to those last few minutes of a match where you're trying to cap the point, you got to be creative. And we'll talk about this here in a second, but with the new commander ability with the artillery barrage, that's going to be very, very big. But we'll talk about last-minute pushes and what kind of changes I expect to see there from all different teams across the board. But speed, 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 that's the thing I'm thinking of. And also the heavy tanks can take a little bit more pounding. They could take a little bit more pounding from the rockets. So we're going from 3 rockets in the booty to 4 rockets in the booty. So all streamers got to keep that in mind when they're looking at anti-tank players coming behind enemy tanks. It's going to require 4 rockets now, not 3. And so it's going to also incentivize AT players to work together and to really hunt down enemy tanks. Let's go on next to the terrain modifiers. This right here is huge. Tank physics system and trench traversal system are both huge. Now, the number one thing we got to see how this works out on is quarantine for the little ditch crossings. Let's bring up a clip of that. Where are these guys? Oh, there they are. Oh, man.
At least they're together.
Not making fun of anyone else. At least they're together. Oh, man. But we all know about the quarantine little ditches over there to the bottom left of the map. When it comes to crossing those in any type of vehicle besides a heavy, you always get stuck. So please, if you test this out in a match today, tomorrow, whenever, post it in the comments if you're able to get through these trenches now without any worry. Supply trucks and transport trucks, I'm assuming, are going to still have issues. But maybe Pumas, Panzer IVs, Luxes will no longer get stuck in these quarantine ditches. That's probably the number one place to test it out. But suddenly, just like that, maps like Kursk become a lot more playable. And with this, too, I really like how the tankers won't need to worry about having to angle their tanks at a certain part. I mean, all tankers will know what I'm talking about, but to angle your tank to get it to go over a certain a bump of snow, a little mound of dirt, that kind of thing. I know how annoying it can be when you're driving in a tank. You didn't angle it properly, so the tank gets stuck, smashes against a little mound of rubble, and you got to back up, goes down to 4th gear, all that kind of stuff. So it's a big quality of life improvement just to see tanks be able to go smoothly over a terrain and to be able to get just move throughout the map a lot easier. So that's going to be nice. It's going to increase the number of players wanting to tank, and so it's going to, I think, make that much more attractive for players to want to jump into a light tank, a recon tank, and maneuver throughout the map and to make some magic happen. So looking forward to see that. Yeah, seeing a Panzer IV cross the trench like this is just absolutely great. No longer will tanks be able to be limited to the certain bridges, and I think it's going to change AT gun positions a little bit because teams used to just zero on AT guns to certain bridge crossings on maps like Kursk and not allow any enemy tanks to get across them. And so this will be a nice change where tankers will have more options to move about the map, more flexibility. Firing knockback force, that's okay. Just will force tankers to keep adjusting a little bit and not maybe aim their gun in the exact same position as always. Contextual repairs, so I saw this and thought this was going to be very, very big too. So we can take a look at this though real quick. So we have the tracks, repairing the tracks. Because often you times you see tankers. I'm going to go ahead and poke on a buddy of mine, Wix. So Wix right here and Flurg are repairing this tank. Now, what are tankers very used to? We're used to just staying by a track and just it repairs the whole tank without a problem. And what this is going to do, it's going to increase the exposure for tankers while they're repairing because no longer can they just sit in one spot. They're going to be jumping all around, kind of like when you're looking for a satchel that's placed on top of the tank. And so Wix right there is able to stay on the side with Flurg. They have the repair stations. Now, there's no indication, I think, in the notes about repair stations changing. But tankers are going to be more exposed while repairing going forward. So a few things are going to happen with this. It's going to bump up the need for repair stations to limit the exposure of tankers. However, if the tankers don't have a repair station, artillery is coordinating on top of it and destroying all those repair stations. It's going to increase the exposure of the tankers, resulting, I believe, in more tanks being down to 2-man, 1-man crews more often. And so it's going to be a very interesting dynamic and put a lot more pressure on that coordination of repair stations, keeping them built always to keep the tanks at a full tank crew. Because I feel like we're going to see a lot more interesting incidents of where tankers are trying to run around, trying to repair certain spots, but they're more exposed. Infantry is going to take advantage of that. And we're going to see a little bit more Baba Badooey action, everybody. A little bit more Baba Badooey action. Now, when it comes to the heavy tank limitation of 2, we have to think about, I'm thinking about this from a commander standpoint, but what it's going to do is going to allow more fuel to be used for other things. We're going to see more half-tracks being spawned, more jeeps, more allocation to mediums, obviously, because I feel like there's going to be an extra tank crew or 2 for each team as they're developing throughout the match. And I'm kind of curious. It may ruffle a few feathers as to who gets to get the heavy, who doesn't get to get the heavy. Just saying, could be a few arguments here and there about the who gets to use the Tiger and who gets to use the Panzer IV. Our tanker is going to be just, hey, yep, anybody can, it's your turn, it's my turn, it's your turn. Because before, competitive teams used to not have to worry about that. It was unlimited heavies pretty much for the most part. But most competitive teams have armor crews that are mature, and they'll just swap into any tank that's available. And I think it's going to be a next man up situation for tank crews to get into whatever's available, spawn extra mediums, spawn extra luxes, because I mentioned about the point dives when it comes to the extra speed. But like I said, extra fuel on the board to be able to be potentially converted over to munitions to use the new ability, the artillery barrage ability. But yeah, I'm kind of curious how this will just impact. We'll see it in matches over the weekend. We're going to see the 2 fixed heavy tank crews, but the potentially 2 medium tank crews duoing out on the perimeter of the map. So we may see 2 Panzer IVs, 2 Shermans, 2 Comets working the edge of the map together, just scoping out where the enemy heavies are. So I'm looking forward to seeing what competitive teams come up with as far as those new type of strategies, since the teams are limited to 2 heavies now. But whenever we see a satchel player making a move on a heavy tank, especially with a 10-minute cooldown, it's going to be a bigger impact. I mean, the communications is going to need to be there, because once again, going back to the tank crews, they're going to know that they have 2 heavies to deal with. 2 heavies to deal with going forward. But they're going to have 2 heavies to deal with going forward, and then they'll be able to kind of hopefully look at them through recon and figure out what's what. But it's also going to incentivize teams to use dummy tanks to just put them throughout the map and maybe have 1-man crewmen and just to keep the enemy guessing as to where their enemy tanks are. Now, of course, unless the squad lead spots them or whatever, but you could use dummy tanks, spawn a Puma, just bring up the Puma and use it in the back line for just when it picks up on recon, the enemy team will be like, well, is that the heavy, or is that what is that? Is that a P4? Is that a heavy back there? We don't know. Because remember, the recon plane doesn't show exactly what is being used there or what is placed there on the map. Okay, then we're moving on to anti-tank adjustments. Like I mentioned before, 4 shots instead of 3 in the back of the heavies now. So we got to keep that in mind, casters. It's not going to be 1, 2, 3. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 shots. So we just got to keep that mentally in mind. But like I said, it's going to incentivize anti-tank players to work together a little bit more versus lone wolfing it. Technician loadout, that's going to be the obviously this is going to be the change with the ammo depot being built on the front line. We're going to see tanks be able to be static in a certain position a little bit longer, and they're not going to be as aggressive when they get low on ammo, obviously, because what we oftentimes see is a heavy will get low on ammo, and they will just charge forward because they know they got a heavy back in HQ waiting for them, and they could just blow through this one if they're really high surplus of fuel. Now that's going to change a little bit. So it's going to put more pressure on the technicians, on supplies being dropped to build these extra ammo depots for tanks to reload up on the front line versus heading back to HQ. So it's a good, positive, a very, very positive thing for just keeping the rhythm on the front line versus tankers have to drive all the way back. And no more ferry system as well, where you often saw one person responsible for driving tanks from the front line to the HQ and HQ to the front line to replenish the ammo. So this is a nice quality of life improvement in my opinion. But it's also going to increase the responsibility of armor coordinating with the artillery crews to make sure that they're knocking out these buildables and making the tanks not as effective. So the artillery is going to have to keep track of their structures destroyed a lot more closely, and I don't know if they're going to plan on breaking those structures out in the future, but we'll have to take a look at what the stats are. Salvaging wreckages, I saw this and thought, oh, okay, that's a nice little bump. That's nice. It's not crazy. I mean, unless I don't know what the fuel give back is. I haven't looked into the details, but unless it's like plus 100 fuel per wreck or something, it's just a nice little bump to the fuel storage. Teams should be dealing with a fuel surplus going forward to use half tracks, jeeps, more light tanks, all that kind of stuff. Because since we're only dealing with 2 heavies, which will be 1,200 fuel, and teams will be able to better strategize out their resources being used throughout the match. So that's a nice little addition right there. And it'll give people something extra to do once they see a destroyed carcass to earn some extra CE, or not CE, but support score probably to get them, level up quicker. Okay, vehicle cosmetic, just going to blow past that, not too concerned about that. Audio, there was nothing here. I mean, I think tanks are going to be a little bit louder, so a little bit easier to hear. I think that was the main thing I saw. Commander ability, let's talk about this. Artillery, commander ability, here we go. So the artillery ability is going to be very interesting. I feel like we're going to see a lot of pub commanders for a little while take this just to use the artillery battery and not do anything else. So we're going to have to deal with that in the meantime. So hopefully it won't be too big of an issue. But from a competitive standpoint, it's really going to be a nice boost. And let's dive into why. So I'll watch the clip here real quick of the artillery going off. It's a nice boost for the commanders. They get the ability finally versus the old stuff. But this is really going to change how the game is going to be played when the team is ready to push. This is going to be so interesting to see how the team use this. But here are my initial thoughts. So if we jump to a game like Omen, I had the game last weekend of Omen. Okay, just assuming. Airhead called. All right, so this Omen versus 82 AD game this past weekend for HCA and the PC side was huge. It was a slugfest back and forth. We were down to 4 minutes and 43 seconds left. The same Airglees, Omen. Here we go. This is the push by Omen. We have 2 Tigers over here in the attacking. They're on the axis. They're trying to capture SME to win the game. Hardcap. We take a look here. We have one Tiger that was right here on the right side of the church. Another Tiger right here. We have the Blueberries trying to push up behind him. Now, let's picture this in our minds, ladies and gentlemen. Let's picture these Tigers pushing up. Or actually, wait, hold on. Let's picture the artillery ability being called in all around the church, okay? Bombing run coming into, strafing run, precision strike landing on an enemy tank back here, this jumbo, let's say. And then the main artillery gun is using smoke rounds to fire over here. Pure chaos. Pure chaos. Pure chaos. We're looking at chaos from a streamer standpoint. It's going to really put pressure on teams from the defensive standpoint to make sure their Garys are in check, their tanks are just dispersed about and in very good positions. But it's going to create this unique environment for these last big pushes that we often see in matches of smashing the front line and everybody rushing in. And defensive teams are suddenly going to find themselves scrambling, I feel, a little bit more. I feel like when it's going to get time for the team to cap, it's going to be more chaos. It's going to be I feel like the attacking team is going to have a much better advantage, and they're going to be able to break these 2-3, 3-2 stalemates that we often see develop. The artillery barrage is going to be huge because just imagine these Tigers push on forward after the artillery is landing over here to the left, back here by the 76, and over here to the right. So it's clearing out the area and creating space for the infantry and the tanks to push on forward because they know that's covered by artillery, okay? We're going to see more infantry in buildings hiding out when those abilities are being called in. Now, I haven't heard the sound yet as to what that feels like on the ground level if you can actually hear it called in. But kind of thinking like the Katusha strike. But we're going to see, I feel like this is the ability, part one of the ability. Now, they mentioned a part two of the artillery rework that they're going to have to figure this out. But, the 76 to our left got taken out. The 76 to our left got taken out already. I'm just imagining And a chaotic situation.
Oh, but there goes the 76.
Yeah, so that's 76 right there went Baba Badooey. That's 76 to the left went Baba Badooey. And I feel like here it's going to create this just powerful ability for a team to push. Now, granted, the other team could call on those abilities too from a defensive standpoint, but I feel like the offensive team is going to have a bigger advantage when it comes to that 2-3. They're down 2-3. They got to make a big attack. The commander is going to save the airhead, the bombing run, the artillery barrage. Artillery from an HQ is going to switch over to smoke, and it's going to create this cloud around the midpoint of confusion for the defending team and allow the attacking team to have a much better chance of capping mid when they really want to make a big push. I can't wait to see this ability used on stream. I think it's going to be really, really solid. But this Omen versus 82 AD game, this would have been a premier example for that to be used. Also, we got to think about annoying artillery positions as well. If a team needs to be pushed, but they're getting held down by, let's say, 2 or 3 MGs, let's say on Stalingrad, for example, it's going to commander can use that artillery ability on that. We can also think about solo strikes in arty, so using 100 munitions versus 300 munitions and calling it in, just to take out points of interest. It's really going to shake up. I think we're going to see a lot more captures. That's what I'm trying to say. If the teams are even, they're duking it out back and forth, we're going to see a lot more caps. And that's what I think we all want. I think we want to see more twists and turns to these very static matches that, especially amongst the higher level teams. I mean, granted, both teams beat the crap out of each other. They may not think it's static, but from your watching standpoint, it could be, you're exchanging blows back and forth amongst the hedgerows, and nothing's really changing. I think this, especially on a map like Utah, where you can blast a series of hedges apart and the team pushes on forward, that's where we're going to also see the artillery barrage be super, super, super helpful when it comes to making that breakthrough. So that's my initial thoughts on the artillery ability. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch on over to the admin cam ability. So admin cam, let's go and watch this real quick. We take a look at the map. Del Saltberg did a video on this already, and so him and I think exactly alike on this. You got to have the ability to flip-flop these things. From a streamer standpoint, this is going to be chaos. I mean, this is really going to be, I want to be able to know where the enemies are or where the friendlies are. I want to be able to flip-flop, because when you're trying to zoom around the map and see what's going on, the blueberries, raspberries, yeah, okay, I can see that part kind of clearly. But when it comes to the spawn points, they're all intermixed. Baker Squad's OP looks like a friendly OP here. So we got to have the ability to flip-flop between those two, or else it's just going to create chaos from a streamer standpoint to want to zoom in and be like, oh, is that a friendly OP or is that a enemy OP? Because you got to listen to it and be like, oh, okay, they're speaking German. Oh, they're speaking English. They're speaking British. So we got to be able to fix that up. We got to fix that up, developers. We got to fix that up ASAP. If we could somehow in a dream world have the ability to flip-flop between sides to see what their map looks like versus the other map looks like, then that's good too. That'd be a fix. But in this case, if we could just have the toggle to turn one off, one on, as far as what we see, we desperately need that before we get too far into any more streams, or else it's going to just create a whole bunch of confusion, especially from a viewer standpoint. They're really not going to understand the map and see what's going on. So we got to be able to fix that hopefully as soon as possible. Another quick note, and while they're on this, if there's ability to get on the ground level and be just like a visible soldier anyways on the ground that can just run around and just get that ground level view, that'd be nice too. But that's a little, maybe a little bonus. But let's focus on fixing that admin cam right there. Okay, so just the last few things, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go ahead and talk about the rest of these. Invite only locked, not too concerned about that. ADSOV, that'll be good for, I'm not too concerned about that. But picking up supplies, that's going to be a nice quality of life improvement just for those support players who can put their box down, but then go, crap, I put it in the wrong location. They wanted to carry this place, not that place. So at least they could pick up the box again and move it to maybe 2 or 3 meters over to the right and be able to adjust the garrison location and not have to worry about redeploying and swapping out of support. So that's a nice quality of life improvement. That's really good. New icon enemy supplies. Yes. Oh my gosh, this is so nice. This is so nice. But how many times have you marked an enemy garrison or enemy outpost, and somebody says, oh, is that an enemy garrison or is that an enemy outpost? And you say, no, it's just supplies. Okay. Thousands of conversations like that have happened. I know I've had my fair share. So that's a really nice quality of life improvement from a map perspective to clean up all of those cluttered marks and not have to put down an enemy garrison mark and cause people to panic. No, it's just supplies. They haven't put down the garrison yet. So that's really nice. Killed an action screen, redeployment, vehicle FX. That's going to be nice just from us creating cinematic moments on stream and capturing those. That's going to be really nice. Sandstorms, great. Rain update, great. More chaos right there. And I think that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's about it. Yeah, I think that's about it. Okay, so those are my initial thoughts about Update 18 and what I think is going to maybe happen in these upcoming streams this weekend. If you have any questions or things that I missed, let me know. Or if you want my feedback on something, I'll probably make another video after I stream a whole bunch of matches this weekend or over this next week or so to get a feel for how teams, especially see how teams are adapting to the armor rework and what is all there. So I'm looking forward to seeing all that for this time. We'll give a quick, maybe next week or the week after, just see like an update 18 status check and see how this is all working out. Okay. But anyway, if you have any questions, go and drop a comment below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that like button. And then, of course, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe. And I'll look forward to seeing you on stream, buddies. Have a good one.